Members of the House, we're getting ready to begin, 10 o'clock, so I would ask you to find your chairs. Go ahead.
Good morning. This is roll call for the third day, January 16th, 2025. Alamand. Present. Andrew. Here. Angelos. Here. Banks.
Excused.
Bear.
Here.
Brady.
Here.
Bratton.
Here.
Brown. Gary.
Excused.
Brown. Landon.
Here.
Byron.
Here.
Campbell. Elisa.
Here.
Campbell. Kevin.
Excused.
Chestick.
Here.
Clouston.
Here.
Connolly.
Here.
Davis.
Excused.
Eklund.
Excused.
Erickson.
Here.
Filer. Geringer.
Here.
Guggenmoss.
Here.
Haraldson.
Here.
Harshman.
Excused.
Heiner.
Here.
Heft.
Here.
Jarvis.
Here.
Johnson.
Excused.
Kelly.
Here.
Knapp.
Here.
Larson Lloyd.
Here.
Larson JT.
Here.
Lawley.
Here.
Lean.
Excused.
Locke.
Excused.
Lucas.
Excused.
McCann.
Here.
Nicholas. Notman.
Excused.
Pendergraft.
Here.
Posey. Posey. Provenza.
Here.
Riggins.
Excused.
Rodriguez Williams. Schmid.
Excused.
Sherwood.
Here.
Singh. Smith.
Here.
Storer.
Excused.
Strock.
Here.
Stivar.
Present.
Tarver.
Here.
Thayer.
Here.
Washut.
Here.
Wasserberger.
Here.
Webb.
Here.
Weber.
Here.
Worf.
Excused.
Williams.
Here.
Winter.
Excused.
Wiley.
Here.
Yin.
Here.
Speaker Nyman.
Here. We have some members that are still completing revenue, so we will hold roll call open. Representative Banks. Yeah, we'll do that later, so she'll go back through it for you. Thank you, everyone. Moving on. Next we'll have our prayer by Representative Jeremy Haraldson.
Let's go to the Lord in prayer. God, as we come on this third day of the 68th legislative session and stand together, God, I thank you for the opportunity we have to be here. God, I also thank you for all the men and women who have come before us and laid the foundation for us to be able to do what we're doing today. God, we don't take that lightly. We understand that there's hours of prayer. There's many lives that have been sacrificed in a lot of ways to be able to make this state great. And God, let us remember and realize that until we stand up and sacrifice our own generation's time, that we will not continue to see this nation be great. So God, I pray as we go through this session that we would understand that we are called to be servants. God, that in that way we have the ability to leave a lasting mark on history, God. And as we've heard before, as the pictures change on the walls, God, our names will be forgotten. But God, let us be able to leave a mark, an indelible mark, upon the history of this state with the actions that we bring. God, I pray that everything we say and do would bring honor and glory to you. God, let us be wise and be slow to speak and quick to listen. Let us understand that unity is in uniformity, that we are not in this moment to try to turn everyone into ourselves or those that think like us, but understand that our differences do bring strength as well. I pray that you would be with us today. Bless us as we walk through this process and this time. And I pray that as we do this, God, that we would understand that in our own strength, it will be very, very near impossible. But God, in your strength, we can accomplish great things. We thank you and praise you now. In Jesus' name, amen.
To Representative Harrelson, body, if you'll join me in the salute to our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Report. Oh, we do. Okay, we're not going to be able to take that till we finish roll call, and we do have quite a few members coming in. So we've also, ladies and gentlemen, got a special event that is currently taking place in the Senate. Is a military exercise that will be coming this way too. So as the tradition has been in the House, is to, when we start each day, is to have the opportunity to get up and what they call, for those of you who don't know, maybe Representative Brown could lead us in this. But play ball is what we're going to be hollered if they would still want to do that. And encourage all of you to get up, move around, greet your fellow legislators, welcome them to the morning, and let them know that you appreciate them and that you're looking forward to a full and productive day here in the House. So, Chairman Brown? Ready? Okay, representatives, we want to finish our roll call so we can continue on here. Chief Clerk.
Banks? Brown, Gary? Campbell, Kevin? Davis? Davis? Eklund? Harshman?
Excused.
Johnson? Lean? Locke? Lucas? Riggins? Ottman? Schmid? Storer? Worf? Winter? Davis?
He's in here. I just literally saw him. Can someone please go gather Representative Davis?
Davis? Harshman?
Excused.
Sixty-one present, one excused.
Your Journal Committee reports that the Journal of January 15th, 2025 has been read and recommends that it be approved. Representatives Jarvis and Posey.
Thank you, Journal Committee. Messages from the Senate.
None.
We have no messages from the Senate. Okay, do we want to go ahead and start doing some introductions while we continue to wait for these folks to come? Yeah, here, ladies and gentlemen, what we're waiting for, just so y'all know, we're going to have a military exercise here in the chamber. They're currently doing their work in the Senate. And so when we know of their arrival, they're supposed to be here a little bit ago, but we've kind of been holding off here to not get too deep into the process before they get here and have to stop and everything, but that'll work. They're currently, I just hear they're finishing in the Senate, so Representative Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Privilege of the floor.
Proceed.
Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to introduce some wonderful constituents up in the gallery. It is Jeff and Bren Sharp. They came all the way down to watch and observe from LaGrange.
Without seeing any other privileges, I would like to take this opportunity just to make a general announcement to all you representatives. Last count I heard this morning is that we currently have 725 bills that have been, that are in the process of being worked through the system. That's a fairly substantial amount. In fact, I do believe that is the largest number of bills that have ever been produced so far. Maybe not. I mean, we're within a bill or two and we've got time yet. And so this would be my admonition to all of you. You need to get a hold of me. I need you to come up with your top 3 bills that are going to be the most important to you, and I would love for you to name them in order of importance to you and to your constituents and what you're trying to do. It will help me to be more effective in ordering the introduction of the bills, and I want to make every effort to make sure that your bills that are most important to you and your districts get heard and made it into the system. So I would encourage all of you to get a hold of me. Write them down. If you would love to come into the office and sit down, I want to chat with each and every one of you about the things that you want me to know about those bills and why they're important, or just get me a list so that I can know what I need to be looking for as we make these decisions and introductions each day. I want to try to make sure and get you all taken care of, and we want to do it in a timely fashion so that we have ample time to hear your bills. So with that, we have our we have our special event. Do you want me to go ahead and start reading this off? Ladies and gentlemen, fellow representatives, we are honored to have Wyoming's Adjutant General, Major General Greg Porter with us today to recognize Senior Airman Kaylee Ward of the 153rd Security Forces Squadron, who deployed to Ali Al Salam Air Base, Kuwait, this past year. Master Sergeant William Bonham
Yes, sir.
of the 115th Field Artillery Brigade, a Purple Heart recipient, and Miss Sandy McFarland, the Wyoming Veterans Commission new and first deputy. Please join me in recognizing the incredible service of these individuals. Major General Porter, I invite you to say a few remarks.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Good morning, Speaker. It is a privilege to be here. Thank you for allowing us a short opportunity to address the People's House. It's very much appreciated.
Honor is truly ours.
Yeah. For those of you that I have not yet met, my name is Major General Greg Porter, and I have the privilege to serve as Wyoming's 27th Adjutant General. And again, thank you very much. I know you are incredibly busy with an incredibly packed schedule, but appreciate the opportunity to introduce you to some outstanding men and women that serve in your Cowboy Guard. You know, I'd be remiss if I didn't to reach out and thank the members of the House Transportation and Military Affairs Committee, particularly the chairman, Lannon Brown, who's been our chairman for a while. So, sir, thank you for your leadership and vision, particularly of the last 2 years. We worked through some very difficult issues, and thank you, sir, for all that you've done, and all the members that serve on our Transportation and Military Affairs Committee. You know, what an honor it must be to serve as the elected representatives of each of your communities, to embody the trust of all those that voted for you, to represent them in our oft-times contentious democracy, to make the decisions that will affect our state today, tomorrow, and potentially generations in the future. That is pretty darn cool. But it's not as cool as my job. I serve with some truly outstanding individuals, not only these folks here, but if you look in the gallery around me, you'll see our folks in our operational camouflage pattern, again, representatives of the Wyoming Cowboy Guard and all they do. They are truly America's best and Wyoming's best. Hey, thank you for that. Before I introduce the folks here on the floor, I just want to give you a quick update of what's going on in your Wyoming Guard right now. Governor Gordon covered it briefly yesterday during the State of the State, but your team is extremely busy. So right now we've got about just short of a third of the Wyoming Army National Guard force structure deployed into Central Command and Southern Command. We have a brigade headquarters, and we've had a battalion of rocket launchers, HIMARS. We've done that mission before, but this is the first time that we actually took all of our equipment with us usually we fall in on some pre-positioned launchers in theater, not the case this time. So to give you a sense of the magnitude of that, that was 189 semi-loads of equipment that we transshipped to port. Extremely large lift for the Guard to get that done, but they did it brilliantly, and the team is there now executing missions on behalf of the Central Command commander. Simultaneous with that, you probably know, we have three I did it last time too. I have three C-130 aircraft that's in California right now. Normally, there's 8 of those aircraft. We provide 2, and the other 3 wings provide 2. But because of some other missions that are going on in the world, we actually picked up the slack for some other folks, and we have 3 aircraft over there right now, doing a great job. What probably isn't known as much is the Air Expeditionary Group Commander, that they call him, in charge of those 8 MAFs, is one of Wyoming Air National Guardsman, T.J. Gagnon, is currently in Boise right now at National Interagency Fire Coordination Center, managing that piece. And so we got pretty good insight, pretty good intel on what's going on with the MAFs folks. But we got 3 Hercules aircraft out there and about 40 folks doing a great job for California. Hopefully we can help those guys out. At the same time, this weekend, we'll deploy about 70 soldiers and airmen to the presidential inauguration to ensure that we have a peaceful transition of power out there. The team's been training hard this past week to get ready for that, and we'll take 3 of our own aircraft to transport them out there and bring them home. So they'll start that this weekend, led by an Air Guard Major, Tony Munoz, and a First Sergeant, and about 70 folks, and so they'll do a great job. Recently, we just, you may have seen in the paper, we also conducted search and rescue, or in this case, search for a downed airplane. And I will just tell you that the men and women of the National Guard continue to execute missions, both as in support of the president as a sword, and those here in support of our citizens and the governor as the shield. They truly do a great job. Let me introduce you to some folks I got here today with me. Let me introduce you to Senior Airman Kaylee Ward. Kaylee's grandparents live in Thermopolis. Father grew up there. Kaylee now calls Cheyenne home, but she served most recently on deployment with the 386th Expeditionary Security Forces in support of Operation Enduring Freedom from April to October of 2024. There, she provided critical security for aircraft and personnel, supporting substantial air combat operations and logistical efforts. She participated in the Flyaway Security Reparation Team, assisting in transporting 22 refugee women and children from Syria. She contributed numerous hours to the Ali Al-Salim Air Base Honor Guard and played a key role in the dignified transfer of a fallen airman. She's been recognized for her leadership in coordinating squadron morale events, receiving the Diamond Sharp Award, and recognized by her command chief. Ladies and gentlemen, Senior Airman Kaylee Ward. Next is Master Sergeant William Bonham. William is a Purple Heart recipient that he earned overseas in Tikrit. He was actually born in Laramie, grew up in Casper, and now calls Cheyenne home. But he served with our 1041st Multi-Role Bridge Company from 2006-2007 in Iraq. And we actually had quite a few Purple Hearts that were earned during that time. Sergeant Bonham served as a turret gunner on a Humvee, and during a mission where they were doing route clearance, he was injured with an improvised explosive device and was awarded the Purple Heart. Sergeant Bonham continues to serve today as our senior culinary NCO for the 115th Field Artillery Brigade and leads our state food and lodging program. Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you to Purple Heart Award winner, Sergeant Bonham. The last guest I have today I wanted to introduce to you is Mrs. Sandy McFarland. She is our first Deputy Director of the Veterans Commission, which Mr. Shepard will tell you makes her the best. So does a great job for us. She actually came from the Veteran Service Officer ranks with us. She served in Gillette as a VSO there before she assumed her duties as the Deputy Director. She and her husband currently own a ranch and reside in Newcastle, Wyoming. Her focus really as the Deputy Director is to get after caregiver support, mental health support, and programs for women's veterans. We're very excited to what she can bring to the team and the impact that she will make in our veterans here. Ladies and gentlemen, Sandy McFarland. You know, our nation and the Wyoming National Guard in particular, we've been creating veterans for the last 25, 30 years. Actually, we've been doing it our entire history as a Guard. But we have a specific population of veterans here in the state of Wyoming. Governor Gordon, as our Commander-in-Chief, is committed to having Wyoming rank as the most veteran military-friendly state in the nation. His governor's challenge is primarily focused on suicide reduction and improving mental health. As you probably may know, Wyoming continues to rank in the top 3 in the nation in suicides. Wyoming veteran suicide is 3 times the national average. The national average is about 33.9 per 100,000. In Wyoming, it's about 80 per 100,000. Top contributors to suicide are finances, mental health issues based on stress and relationships, and the health based on the trauma they incurred while serving. As you make significant and tough decisions about the future of our state, its budget, and its priorities, please keep in mind our significant veteran population who honorably serve defending our state and nation. Speaking of which, I'd like to introduce very quickly Colonel Retired Tim Shepard, our Executive Director for the Veterans Commission. Tim, if you say a few words.
Thank you, sir. And when the general says be quick, I'll be quick. So it is my honor to stand before you this morning. I did want to just briefly talk about our Veterans Talking to Veterans program. The governor mentioned it yesterday, but I wanted to talk about those 2 sets of veterans. That first veteran in Veteran Talking to Veterans is a highly trained, trauma-informed coach who I was remiss in the Senate in telling you is a volunteer. And all of the time, all of the effort that they put into that program is because they care about veterans and they want to make a difference and they want to help veterans thrive. The second veteran is the participant. And I think they deserve a great deal of credit as well because they've stepped forward. They've stepped forward and they've said, hey, I want to thrive, help me. And so they allow themselves to be in that environment. And so I would ask you, if you would please, to give a round of applause for both of those veterans.
On behalf of all those in the Wyoming Guard that serve as your sword and shield, I want to thank you for all that you do. As I've told this body before, there's a lot of similarities with serving in the legislature and serving in the National Guard. Your part-time job is pretty much a full-time job. Nobody calls you unless something bad is happening. And everybody has an idea of how you can do your job better. So thank you very much for all that you do for the state of Wyoming. It is incredibly important. I can't tell you the support that we receive from this state and this body is incredible, and the men and women who serve in your ranks appreciate you for it. Bless all of you, bless our veterans, bless their families, bless all those that serve this great state and nation. It is a privilege to serve as your Adjutant General. Ride for the brand.
General Porter, Senior Airman Ward, Master Sergeant Boname, and Ms. McFarland, thank you for joining us and allowing us to honor you and the rest of our military present here in the gallery today. And thank you for being the sword and the shield of the great state of Wyoming and our nation. Thank you so much for your sacrifice and for your willingness to serve and to protect this great nation. Thank you again.
Thank you, sir.
All right, members, we'll get ready here as they make their way to the back of the gallery. Next item on our list here is, unless the chief clerk has something else we want to go to.
Mr. Speaker?
Yes,
Mr. Speaker, privilege of the floor.
absolutely. Go ahead, Representative Bear.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to talk about rules changes, which is coming up likely Monday. We will be voting on changes to our rules that we operate on in here. There was a meeting of the Rules Committee yesterday, some great debate on some of the rules changes that are coming from that committee, but all of you have an opportunity to bring amendments to the rule changes, but you would need to have those drafted over the weekend so that you could bring it in paper copy. So both drafted and approved before we go into the debate on rules changes on Monday. So I want everybody to be aware of that. But there's a significant rule change that was passed yesterday evening, and I want you all to be aware of that. I'm going to ask Director Obrecht to email you all a copy of that. There was a link yesterday. He may be sending you a link. The reason is it has to do with a voting board and a voting system, which there will be a bill forthcoming to appropriate for that, but it's a very comprehensive system of how we will vote in the future. And so rather than my rule change and the Rules Committee's approval of that, all of you should be able to look at that in the event that you want to change. This is your opportunity to add an amendment to that amendment, so that if you don't like what the Rules Committee came up with, you can bring an amendment on Monday to amend that amendment. Otherwise, it will be an up and down vote on that amendment. And, it's when we have significant changes like that to how we're going to operate, I think it's important that everybody has an opportunity to have some input on that. So you'll have some opportunity by looking. You can go back and watch the debate from yesterday evening about that amendment. But you'll also hopefully have a link here soon where you can read it and decide if you'd like to see some changes to that amendment to the rules. But it has to do with having a push-button voting system and having that displayed on the board. I also wanted to bring this up because all of us received an email just a moment ago from Anthony Serra in LSO regarding what system is already in place so that you can watch the votes live. So I encourage you to go to that link and see what the system upgrade is that has happened over the last interim. And then you'll be able to tell, well, do we want to go further with that, or would you like to stop where we're at? So you'll have a good informed vote on Monday on the rules change. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Representative Bear, and encourage you all to, that's today, and try to get that into them by tomorrow, Friday, so that those amendments can be relayed Monday. Any others? Oh, Representative Singh.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Privilege of the floor.
Absolutely.
If everyone could go ahead and look to the south side of the gallery here, we have folks that have come from all across the state to voice their support of a convention of states, and as well as the Honorable Rick Santorum of Pennsylvania. So if we could all welcome them to the House.
Welcome to the House, Senator Santorum, and all others. Appreciate your opportunity to be here. Unless there are other privileges or anything like that, we will move along. We are at that order of business for introduction and reading and reference of bills. First bill for our consideration is House Bill 108.
House Bill 108, sponsored by Representative Allemand.
First reading of the bill.
Firearms purchase protections.
House Bill 108 will be assigned to number 1 committee, Judiciary. House Bill 38, next bill for our consideration.
House Bill 38, sponsored by Revenue.
First reading of the bill.
Ad valorem taxation, payment and credit of penalties.
House Bill 38 will be assigned to committee number 3, Revenue. Next bill for our consideration is House Bill 39.
House Bill 39, sponsored by Revenue.
First reading of the bill.
Property tax refund program revisions.
House Bill 39 will also be assigned to committee number 3, Revenue. House Bill number 40, next bill for our consideration.
House Bill 40, sponsored by Revenue.
First reading of the bill.
Sales and use tax revisions.
House Bill number 40 will be assigned to committee number 3, Revenue. Next bill for our consideration, House Bill 60.
House Bill 60, sponsored by Representative Lawley.
First reading of the bill.
Student eligibility in sports amendment.
House Bill number 60 will be assigned to committee number 4, Education. Next bill for our consideration will House Bill 72.
House Bill 72, sponsored by Representative Lawley.
First reading of the bill.
Protecting Women's Privacy and Public Spaces Act.
House Bill number 72 will be assigned to committee number 4, Education. Next bill for our consideration is House Bill 18.
House Bill 18, sponsored by Education.
First reading of the bill.
Career Technical Education Funding.
House Bill 18 will be assigned to committee number 4, Education. Next bill for our consideration is House Bill 36.
House Bill 36, sponsored by Representative Harshman.
First reading of the bill.
Hathaway Scholarship Amendments.
House Bill 36 will be assigned to committee number 4, Education. Next bill for our consideration will House Bill 46.
House Bill 46, sponsored by Representative Strzok.
First reading of the bill.
Homeschool Freedom Act.
House Bill 46 will be assigned to committee number 4, Education. Next bill for our consideration will be House Bill 129.
House Bill 129, sponsored by Representative Larson, JT.
First reading of the bill.
School finance, dates for funding transfers.
House Bill number 129 will be assigned to committee number 4, Education. Next bill for our consideration will be House Bill number 2.
House Bill 2, sponsored by Travel.
First reading of the bill.
Hunting license application fees increase.
House Bill number 2 will be assigned to committee number 6, Travel. House Bill number 3, next bill for our consideration.
House Bill 3, sponsored by Travel.
First reading of the bill.
Animal abuse, predatory animals.
House Bill number 3 will be assigned to committee number 6, Travel. Next bill for our consideration will be House Bill number 4.
House Bill 4, sponsored by Travel.
First reading of the bill.
Snowmobile registration and user fees.
House Bill number 4 will be assigned to committee number 6, Travel. Next bill for our consideration will be House Bill 131.
House Bill 131, sponsored by Representative Knapp.
First reading of the bill.
Ballot drop boxes, prohibition.
House Bill 131 will be assigned to committee number 7, Corporations. Next bill for our consideration will be House Bill 133.
House Bill 133, sponsored by Representative Gugamas.
First reading of the bill.
Sanctuary cities, counties, and state prohibition.
House Bill 133 will be assigned to committee number 7, Corporations. Next bill for our consideration will be House Bill 23.
House Bill 23, sponsored by Transportation.
First reading of the bill.
Surrender driver's license appeal.
House Bill 23 will be assigned to committee number 8, Transportation. Next bill for our consideration will be House Bill 27.
House Bill 27, sponsored by Transportation.
First reading of the bill.
Disabled parking windshield placards revisions.
House Bill 27 will be assigned to committee number 8, Transportation. Next bill for our consideration will be House Bill 41.
House Bill 41, sponsored by Representative Lawley.
First reading of the bill.
Environmental quality, irrevocable letters of credit.
House Bill 41 will be assigned to Committee Number 9, Minerals. Next bill for our consideration, House Bill 42.
House Bill 42, sponsored by Representative Lawley.
First reading of the bill.
Regulation of surgical abortions.
House Bill 42 will be assigned to Committee Number 10, Labor. Next bill for our consideration, House Bill 64.
House Bill 64, sponsored by Representative Nyman.
First reading of the bill.
Chemical abortions, ultrasound requirement.
House Bill 64 will be assigned to Committee Number 10, Labor. And that concludes our introductions for that. Hope everybody wrote those down, can start looking at those bills. We need reports from our standing committees. Do we have any standing committee reports? One? Go ahead,
No.
John. We have a few. Okay, I'm sorry.
House
Right
Bill
ahead.
17, sponsored by Education, Career Technical Education Equipment Grants Amendments. Mr. Speaker, your Committee Number 4 Education, to whom is referred House Bill 17, Career Technical Education Equipment Grants Amendments, respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Representatives Andrew, Bratton, Erickson, Gugamas, Kelly, Lawley, Singh, Strzok, Williams. Representative Andrew, Chairman. House Bill 147, sponsored by Representative Rodriguez-Williams, Prohibition of Institutional Discrimination. Mr. Speaker, your Committee Number 4 Education, to whom is referred House Bill 147, Prohibition of Institutional Discrimination, respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that do pass with the following amendments. Ayes, Representatives Andrew, Bratton, Erickson, Gugamas, Kelly, Lawley, Singh, Strzok, Williams. Representative Andrews, Chairman. 156, sponsored by Representative Baer. Proof of voter residency registration qualifications. Mr. Speaker, your Committee Number 7, Corporations, Elections, and Political Subdivisions, to whom is referred House Bill 156, Proof of voter residency registration qualifications. Respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Representatives Brown, Heft, Johnson, Knapp, Locke, Lucas, Webb, Weber. Noes, Representative Yen. Representative Knapp, Chairman. House Bill 157, sponsored by Representative Baer. Proof of voter citizenship. Mr. Speaker, your Committee Number 7, Corporations, Elections, and Political Subdivisions, to whom is referred House Bill 157, Proof of voter citizenship, respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Representatives Brown, Heft, Johnson, Knapp, Locke, Lucas, Webb, Weber, Yin. Representative Knapp, Chairman. House Bill 147, sponsored by Blockchain, Secretary of State, expedited filings. Mr. Speaker, your Committee Number 9, Minerals, Business, and Economic Development, to whom is referred House Bill 47, Secretary of State, expedited filings, respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass with the following amendments. Ayes, Representatives Campbell, Heiner, Knapp, Larson, Lawley, Riggins, Schmidt, Tarver, Weber. Representative Heiner, Chairman. House Bill 132, sponsored by Representative Lean. What is a Woman Act? Mr. Speaker, your Committee Number 10, Labor, Health, and Social Services, to whom is referred House Bill 32, What is a Woman Act, respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass with the following amendments. Ayes, Representatives Klauston, Gugamas, Heft, McCann, Ottman, Rodriguez-Williams, Wasserberger. Noes, Representative Yan. Excused, Representative Stivar. Representative Rodriguez-Williams, Chairman.
That concludes our bills or standing committee reports. Representative Heiner, do we have some re-referrals?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee Number 9 would like to re-refer House Bill 47, Secretary of State expedited filings, to Committee 2.
Thank you, Representative Heiner. Are there any other re-referrals before we move on? Is that it? All right. right, I think we have moved all the way down to something new for many of you legislators, as we were going to be moving on to Committee of the Whole. And so this will be your first opportunity for many of you to be able to engage in the debate of each one of these particular pieces of legislation. You have your list of the bills that will be discussed in Committee of the Whole. And the Committee of the Whole chairman, as all of you probably have had the opportunity to be able to put your name in the pot, to be able to be up here and to take responsibility for this job. And the one that seemed to want to lead off and to take this opportunity early is our recent birthday boy, Representative Filer. So if we could please welcome Representative Filer to the chair of the Committee of the Whole. He's going to have to resolve in.
Majority Floor Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that the House resolve itself into the Committee of the Whole.
Hearing the motion, all those in favor? Say aye. Aye. Those opposed? No. Motion carries. Majority Floor Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We only have had 2 on the list because that's all that we had that were read in. But we just recently read in a lot more bills. So if your computer will refresh and it'll give you another list. But after those 2 bills that are already on the list, we will then hear number 156, House Bill 156, and then House Bill 157. And then we will hear House Bill 32. Following that will be House Bill 147. And hopefully we can get to House Bill 17 before the end of the day. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Majority Floor Leader. Ladies and gentlemen of the 68th Legislature, I'd like to take a privilege before we start. There's a lot of new faces here. A lot of things has changed since the last time I was up here, which has been 10 years, so bear with me. I don't know a lot of your names. I know your faces really well, but I don't know your names, so if you could just work with me. Thank goodness we only got like 5 bills today, or 6, 5. But I want to take this time to, say I appreciate every one of you. One, for the opportunity for all of us to be in this room to do the work of many people prior to us has made this such a great body, and that we do things so much better than any other state in the nation. And I am so proud to be the first Committee of the Whole chairman of the 68th Legislature in this House. And I think it's time to get to work. Thank you. And with that, first bill for our consideration is House Bill 156. The reading clerk will read the bill. It'll be which one? Oh, I'm sorry. First bill for our consideration will be House Bill 14. The reading clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 14, sponsored by Minerals, Solid Waste, Municipal Cease and Transfer Funding. Mr. Speaker, your Committee Number 9, Minerals, Business and Economic Development, to whom is referred House Bill 14, Solid Waste, Municipal Cease and Transfer Funding, respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Representatives Campbell, Heiner, Knapp, Larson, Lawley, Riggins, Schmidt, Tarver, Weber. Representative Heiner, Chairman.
What is your pleasure, Chairman Heiner? Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that when the committee of the whole rises to report, it do so with the recommendation that House Bill number 14 do pass. And for the explanation of the bill, I turn it over to the representative from the northwest part of the state that is actually going to Washington, D.C. next week to be there for the inauguration.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I bring you House Bill 14, Municipal Cease and Transfer Funding. For many of you seasoned good representatives, this bill is very familiar as it comes up annually for our consideration. However, for the benefit of my freshman class and very good representatives, I would like to provide a little background. Prior to 2013, the federal government ordered all landfills with groundwater contamination issues to be closed. However, the cost of compliance was beyond the financial capabilities of many local governments in Wyoming. In 2013, the legislature passed an act that created the Municipal Solid Waste Cease and Transfer Program, which was designed to help smaller communities with problems of landfill groundwater contamination to comply with the federal mandate. The act continues to help communities close landfills and transfer their solid waste regional landfills by providing funding assistance for eligible products. After the initial act passed, the Wyoming Department of Environmental Quality prepared a prioritized list of qualified projects for the program. The initial list included 52 potential eligible projects. Each year, the legislature reviews the revised DEQ recommendations and determines next year's priority. House Bill 14 revises the priority list to 14 projects. 5 are transfer stations and 8 are closure projects. The bill requires no additional appropriation, and it repeals the 2022 Wyoming Session Laws, Chapter 11. I ask for your favorable consideration of House Bill 14. With that, Mr. Chairman, I stand ready for questions.
Any questions? Chairman Washington.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I recognize most of those communities listed there, but there was one listed for a TS rolling stock for $351,000. Can you tell me what TS rolling stock is?
Representative Weber. If you need more time, we can get another question too, if you want to do that. Representative Larson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If the chairman or the good presenter could just bring us up to speed on the overall of the projects. I heard you say there's 52 remaining project. 8 of those that we're funding today are closures and 6 are cease and transfers. I'm just curious if you can help me to know how many of the closures do we have remaining that we have yet to fund. We've got a remaining balance of about 23 million. Do we anticipate that that's sufficient? And the time frame to over how many years to get those completed, please?
Anyone else? Representative Weber. Majority Floor Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this program started in 2013 when there were so many landfills out there, it was hard to control them all. A lot of them were not lined, and there was a big liability, and a lot of our communities did not have the resources to be able to manage the landfills that we had. So our department that oversees our environment, they tried to consolidate some of these down to manageable numbers where we can line them and prevent leakage into the groundwaters. Now, some of those were a little bit too late, and we have some groundwater contamination. But the legislature fully funded what it would take to close all of these other landfills. That money is already set aside and is appropriated, and we've been working off of that since 2013. Now, as these get closed, then they come off of this list, and it's a slow process. It may take another 30 years to finish this all up. But at this time, it's fully funded to close all of the rest of these landfills. There's still, there's $23 million in the account still, and we anticipate a $26 million. As of right now, we anticipate a $26 million expenditure, but there's still some, each community has to put a little bit of skin in the game. So they're not asking for any additional money at this time. Some of it is groundwater monitoring that they have to do for a period of years, but it's a slow process. And we're working through this, a little bit at a time, and it seems like the same number of landfills are on this list, but every once in a while one comes off and gets closed, and we celebrate. But it is a long process, and that's why the legislature funded this years ago. There have been some that have been added to the list, and there's been some that have been closed and taken off the list. But this is an ongoing program. I just want to reiterate, it's fully funded. It's just administering at this point, and every year they have to come back to the legislature as these priorities change and the list changes so that we can approve that. Thank you, Mr.
Representative Larson Lloyd.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that we've had to add funding to that over the years. It's currently funded, but we also have a funding stream that comes into it through the LUST account. But I think what you're telling us is that these projects are fully funded with a balance of 23 million. Historically, I think we've had to adjust that as some of these projects come in. But again, do we know how many of the closures are still pending?
Representative Knapp.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. In testimony, I just wanted to note that some of these are actually loans, which have payments coming in, and then some of the projects actually were completed, but basically had money left over. So the project was under what it cost to, or what it was projected to cost. So I think that's why there's still money in at this time. They anticipate that that will be enough to complete the closures.
Majority Floor Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The good representative from the Valley of the Warm Winds is totally correct. We have had to supplement some of this over the years as inflationary pressure and as some of the contamination has been more than expected, anticipated. But every year when this is brought to the number 9 committee, we ask that question: how are you doing for funds? Are you anticipating needing additional funds or not? And this year they said they're fine. They have sufficient for their needs, but that can blow up at any time with inflation or something unforeseen. I think they've taken a couple off since last year, but there are a lot that are ongoing right now. It would be great if we could see some movement, but it takes a long time to close some of these because of the monitoring that has to go on. So there's some of them that we're not even expending any substantial money on right now, but they're still on the list. They've been cleaned up, but we just have to monitor it for a little while.
Anyone else? Go ahead. You're going to have to help me with your name. Huh? What is it? Riggins. Representative Riggins, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I believe the testimony had 14 projects remaining. Seems that stuck in my mind, and a couple projects, and I don't remember what the TF rolling stock was. I apologize. Thank you.
Representative Ottman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Okay, as I look down at your fiscal note, it's pretty inclusive, and I was very glad to see that because there's a lot of explanation. But one thing, just a point of information, it says that there's 23 landfill closures and 1 carcass management project. that was funded. Is carcass management an ongoing process, and where do we have those around the state? Thank you.
Representative Larson, JT.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To address that last question, for carcass management, it was, in the testimony, we found out that any community in the state can apply for carcass management project. I think the most recent one was in the center part of the state. They needed some bear boxes at their transfer station, so that way they could store the garbage there before they take it to the landfill. So that was one of the projects, but any community can apply to our department to get funding for that, for projects such as that. And then if you just look at the list and the bill, you can see that next to each project, there's a T or a C. So T obviously stands for transfer and C stands for closure. And so if you count, there's 8 closure projects left on the list, and then the remaining would be transfer projects as far as what's pending in the legislation.
Representative, nope. Representative Brown? Anyone, question being called? All those in favor of Chairman Heiner's motion that the committee of the whole, oh, wait a minute. I'm off my script, isn't I? Okay. Will you help me? Okay. Representative Weber, do you want to add anything? So the question was called. This one right here, right? Yes. Okay. Question being called. All those in favor, Representative Heine's motion that the committee of the whole rises and report with the recommendation that House Bill 14 do pass. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? That passes. House Bill 14 passes, committee of the whole. Yep. Next bill for our consideration is House Bill 82. The reading clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 82, sponsored by Labor, Provider Enrollment Standards. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 10, Labor, Health, and Social Services, to whom is referred House Bill 82, Provider Enrollment Standards, respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Representatives Klauston, Gugemas, Heft, McCann, Ottman, Rodriguez-Williams, Wasserberger, Yin. Excused, Representative Stivar. Representative Rodriguez-Williams, Chairman.
What is your pleasure, Chairman Rodriguez-Williams?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, it does so with the recommendation that House Bill 82, Provider Enrollment Standards, do pass. And I will turn the explanation over to the good representative from House District 32.
Clausen? Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I'm happy to bring you House Bill 32, Provider Enrollment Standards. Ladies and gentlemen, I was hoping to go first today, right? Lead us off, but here we are. This bill came to us as an interim topic for labor and health. So it identifies 2 problems that we've seen in Wyoming. I was put in charge of running a task force, and I'd like to thank everybody on that task force. We had members of the Department of Insurance, Department of Health, representatives from all of our private insurance companies, as well as the Hospital Association and the Medical Association. So we met over the summer, we worked out the problems, and we identified 2 things that really needed to be fixed in Wyoming. The first one is when you bring a new provider to Wyoming, they have to fill out 6 to 15 pages of credentialing forms for every single insurance provider. So this is a lot of paperwork for everyone. So we came up with a compromise, working with the Department of Insurance. You fill out 1 online form, and every insurance company will accept this. So this will increase efficiencies for everyone and help cut down costs. The other problem that we've identified was that it can take up to 6 months to get a provider credentialed. So you can bring in a provider to your clinic or to your hospital, and there's patients to be seen, the people that need to be seen. We have providers shortage in Wyoming, and they're sitting there and they can't see patients because they're not credentialed yet. So this will have the providers, and they've agreed to it, to finish their credentialing process within 60 days. So this is fair, this is equitable, and they all feel that they can do it. I'm asking for your support on this bill. It's passed unanimously during the summer and in yesterday's committee. We have full support of the medical society as well as our insurance companies. So this is a way to improve efficiency, cut costs, and get our providers sooner to see our patients here in Wyoming. So I ask for your support on this bill. Thank you.
Question being called. All those in favor of Representative Rodriguez-Williams' motion that when the committee of the whole rises, reported does so with the recommendation that House Bill 82 do pass. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? No. House Bill 82 has passed committee of the whole. The next bill for our consideration is House Bill 156.
House Bill 156, sponsored by Representative Bear. Proof of voter residency, registration qualifications. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 7, Corporations, Elections, and Political Subdivisions, to whom is referred House Bill 156, proof of voter residency, registration qualifications. Respectful report, same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass. Ayes. Representatives Brown, Heft, Johnson, Knapp, Locke, Lucas, Webb, Weber. Noes. Representative Yin. Representative Knapp, Chairman.
You have heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure, Chairman Knapp?
Mr. Chairman, I move that when the committee of the whole rises to report, it do so with the recommendation that bill number 156 do pass. And for explanation of the bill, I will turn it over to the good chairman, Representative Bear.
Chairman Bear.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a very important bill for our constituents. This bill addresses an issue that 85% of the voters in Wyoming want passed this session. This has to do with election integrity. There's been much argument and discussion and debate amongst us and people throughout our state about the need for election integrity. We are a very small state. Our county clerks know a lot of the people who vote in our elections, and we don't have any real significant proof of voter fraud, except there was a case in 2020 where an individual in my county was an illegal alien and voted in the election. We found that later. It was so late that we weren't able to throw that vote out as far as counting. And this leads to a situation where our constituents lose confidence in the system. If we want to have more participation in elections, we need to build that confidence. And that's what this bill addresses. This begins to show to the voters that we are going to require that you are a citizen, in this case, a resident of the state of Wyoming, before you vote. Basically, this means that this will help us ensure that only Wyoming residents vote in Wyoming. And that is just something I have heard over and over from my constituents. I know many of you have as well. Like I said, even nationwide, this is an issue. We can debate whether, there are issues with the elections, whether someone was fraudulently elected or not fraudulently elected. But in this case, this deals with confidence in our system. And we have it in our founding document, the Constitution of the State of Wyoming, that this body is responsible for providing fair and free elections for all citizens who qualify to vote. So how do we do that? We need to ensure that they are qualified to vote. This bill does explicitly that. In the past, we have only had to attest that we are a resident to ensure that we meet that constitutional requirement and that statutory requirement that only residents vote. Well, attestation, folks, is not the same thing as proof. This bill takes it a step further and requires that we prove what we say in our attestation. that we are in fact residents of the state. Now, this bill also does something else. It adds back something that the court of the highest court of this land took away from the state. In our Constitution, it required a duration of residency. And that has been taken away from many states like ours that had a durational residency requirement. This reinstates that, but in a way that the highest court of the land has not challenged. And that has to do with the length of that duration. This particular bill requires a duration of 30 days. This is the maximum. This would put us on the gold standard as far as residential duration is concerned. And that gold standard, again, applies back to that confidence we want to build in our constituents' ability to trust that our votes are counted and that we have free and fair elections, which we're required to do. So I'll take a moment and take you through the bill. First thing we do is we add that 30-day requirement in several different areas of our statute so that anytime someone is registering to vote, again, this is about registering to vote, they will be required to both show proof and attest that they have lived here for 30 days. And then we have the actual proof of residency and the requirements there in several different sections of Chapter 22 of our Green Books, which is what applies to our elections. And you'll see that on pages 5, 6, 7, 8, and lastly, on page 9, under definitions, we again talk about our 30-day requirement to be a resident of the state of Wyoming in order to vote. And with that, I will ask for your favorable consideration of this bill. Again, this bill is an important thing to both our constituents and I believe everyone in this room as well. Thank you.
Representative Yen.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. So, members, I mean, as you know, when you heard the committee report being read in, I was the only no vote. But I heard from the other members loud and clear, they want this, and they think that their constituency wants this, so got it. What I want to do is make sure that this is solid policy, that it makes sense, and that it's consistent. So I have two big problems with this bill. The 30-day durational residency, I don't get it. What does 30-day do for election integrity? I have no idea what 30 days does for election integrity. I heard what the Secretary of State, the good elected who manages our elections told us in committee, but I think that it wasn't very convincing on what 30 days actually gains us in election integrity. Number two is that we don't have a list in that bill of the types of IDs that are possible for proof of residence. And again, the statewide elected said, you know, they'll just do it in rules. I think it's the legislature's job to decide what gets considered proof of residence. So I'll be bringing that as a second amendment. But with that, I'll probably still be voting no because I don't think it actually solves the problem in my view. But I want to make sure that if we are going to do this bill, we make sure it doesn't cause new problems. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Larson, JT.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And first off, I just want to start off by saying that I share the desire of the bringer to ensure that we have confidence in our elections. That's of the utmost of importance in our state. But the question I have is just situational. So U.S. citizen moves into our state on August 1st, or I mean, even October 15th. The way I read this bill, the United States citizen then cannot practice their constitutionally granted right to vote at that point in Wyoming. Can you address that? Talk me through it. Thank you.
Representative Jarvis.
Is it on? Okay, there we go. Chairman, I just have a couple clarifying questions that I want to ask about this. when we're talking about looking at the different aspects of the background checks, it says, so line 14 talks about, on page 2, has not been convicted of a felony. Do our clerks have access to this type of information? And will they have to run, because then it also asks for, on page 3, line 16, adjudicated mental incompetence or incompetent person. Are they going to have access to that type of information? And then the last one, I guess, is that background check, like as far as convicted felon. That involves typically, to my knowledge, a fingerprint that you have to provide in order to be able to run that. And a lot of the times, just working in the industry that I do, it takes 4 to 6 weeks to get that information back. So does that prolong this person's ability to vote on a timeline if that background check hasn't come back? And I guess those are just some clarifying questions because I'm not really sure on this one.
Chairman Bear. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll start in the order that they came in. My good colleague from the northeast part of the state asked 2 questions. One was, is the 30-day figure, is that arbitrary? And I'm here to tell you it is not. There are several states that have had the same issue as we have, where they had a durational residency requirement in their founding documents. And the Supreme Court of this land took that opportunity away. And so they have gone back before us and done this exact same thing with a durational residency. And the maximum that has not been overturned by a court is this amount of days, 30 days. So this would be the gold standard based on what court actions we've seen in the past. This is the best case scenario that we've seen across the land for a durational residency requirement. The second thing was the list of IDs, and this does not list the IDs that were required for proof of residency in the state of Wyoming. Now, I have a thick packet here of information that happened during the last interim where the number 2 executive of our state did have a hearing because he tried to bring some of this stuff in rulemaking, and that rulemaking allowed him to take a lot of public input and determine, what is the best method to do. And really what it is we need to have the ability to change these things a little bit more rapidly than what this body would be able to do. So what we've done is we've allowed rulemaking by the number 2 executive in our state to address that need to be nimble, the need to be able to be responsive to the needs of the people. Many of those IDs were listed in that rulemaking. Now that rulemaking went through a huge vetting process, and the number 1 executive from the state had the ability to veto that rule, and he did so. So he vetoed that rule based on what he believed the authority of the number 2 executive of the state had for rulemaking. This bill addresses that in particular. It gives him that rulemaking authority. He is the executive in charge, as my colleague from the northeast part of the state stated, for this particular issue, voting. And this is registering to vote. So that answers that question. We're going to have to be nimble. From the southeast part of the state, my colleague asked a couple of things having to do with the Voter Rights Act for the United States. Are we taking away anyone's federally guaranteed rights to vote? And the answer is no. This bill, much like the other states, including the one to our northeast that has the same type of rulemaking and same type of requirements, they have been through this, proved it legally that it matches the federal requirement. But I want to take a moment just to explain to you how that happens. If you move into this state and you do not meet the requirements of this bill, you will, under the federal law, be required to vote in your previous state. okay? And every state, including this state, have statutes on the books to ensure that a person who has left their state and does not meet the requirements of the state that they are moving into may vote. We have that on our books. So if someone were to leave our state and go somewhere and not meet the standards of that state, they would not lose their ability to vote. So that addresses that issue. And lastly, the good representative from the center of the state asked a couple of things about background checks. And first thing I'd like to say is the parts where she was asking the question about, that is current law. We're not changing that. That was there for reference so you could see where we are changing law. We're not changing those requirements. But to answer specifically, how can they do this? There is a system that the clerks are tied into to check for felonies. So they run their voter list through that system. And if someone is a felon, it kicks it out and lets them know. And by the way, there's also a system with, they're also tied in with our record system. So if someone is deceased, we've seen that in other states where deceased people, that's one thing I've always asked, you know, that I not get changed to a different party when I pass away so I continue voting. But that is what that does. They have that capability to check those important statistics to ensure that only eligible and qualified voters vote in the state of Wyoming. But thank you for the question.
Representative Wiley.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. And you know, we addressed this partially, and I understand the ideology about being nimble, but I think that the problem I'm having is 22-1-102 on definitions, the last paragraph. I believe this body is the closest to the people that we represent at home. And I believe if we're not careful here and we don't instruct the number 2 of the state, we're seceding our power to the executive branch. And I believe that we really need to take that under caution, because if we do, that's going to be hard to get back. And like I said, I believe that we in this room represent the folks at home closer than the executive branch does. So I just really caution everybody on that. And we looked at it and we went through it. We looked at different definitions. I served on corporations for the previous 2 years. It's a tough question. I mean, if it was easy, we could go down the street and ask, the kindergarten class to solve it, but they might not squabble as much as us. But I mean, it's a tough question. So that's something that we really need to think about, because if we secede our authority here, we may never get that back. And I believe that we really need to think about that. Thank you.
There is a committee of the whole amendment. Representative Brown-Landon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would move Committee of the Whole Amendment number 1 to House Bill 156 and ask for your favorable consideration. Ladies and gentlemen, if you don't see it on your computer right now, it's because I literally just had it numbered, so you'd need to refresh your screen and take a look at it. It's a pretty simple amendment. As we were going through this process, and I saw this bill come up and we were going to discuss this, started reading through this, and then I went and did a little bit of research to find out, how do we rank compared to some of the other states? And I found this really awesome website that kind of lists every single voter registration database out there, and what are their prerequisites for being able to actually come in and register to vote. And so all this amendment is doing is it's going to go in and add in the county where he will be voting. So this is just making sure that not only are you a resident of the state, but what happens in some cases, I have seen this here in my county, is people will move from Albany County, just over the hill here, and they'll move into Laramie County. And so this is just tightening up that language just ever so tightly to make sure that they're voting in the right county as well. And so we're ensuring that when we put in this registration and they're going to register in a different county or anything along those lines, that we're ensuring that they're voting in the right county, not just a bona fide resident of the state itself. Because the way it reads right now, I could be a bona fide resident of the state from Fremont County, move down to Cheyenne, and I can come vote in Cheyenne without needing to worry about what's going on up in Fremont County or vice versa. So that's all this amendment is really doing, is just trying to tighten up that language. This puts us in line with quite a few of the other states that have a very similar 30-day prescription on registration and those types of things. So I'd stand for any questions, but I would hope you would give this favorable consideration.
Chairman Bear. We're on the Committee of the Whole Amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On and opposed to the amendment. Ladies and gentlemen, I would ask you to resist this amendment. We already have the ability statewide to ensure that we don't have somebody voting in 2 different counties. So we already have that capability. And that is handled within the executive that is over this particular issue. So I would resist this particular amendment. Thank you.
Representative Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess I would lightly push back that if we're talking about voter integrity and making sure that our elections are safe and secure, that's all I'm trying to do is tighten this up even just a little more. I don't disagree that we don't have internal databases that this could happen, but this is also ensuring that if somebody commutes and wants to vote from Albany County over to Laramie County or something along those lines, that when they go to register, we're just saying that they're registering in the county that which they live. Again, we have people that live in outerlying counties and stuff like that, may be able to go register in a different, or may be able to go vote in a different area than they're normally used to. I'm not trying to be nefarious with this at all. I'm actually kind of shocked. I thought this was a friendly amendment to the bill. Just trying to tighten it up and make sure that we are focusing on 100%. That you're not only, I even thought about adding the city and the precinct, but I thought, just the county is really what we're trying to get to here. I just want to make sure that we're tightening this up as tight as possible. So on and forward.
Question being called on all those in favor of committee whole amendment number 1 to House Bill 156, say aye. Aye. All those opposed? No. Committee of the whole amendment number 1 to House Bill 156 has failed. Back on the bill. Chairman Bear.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, body, for that response. I would like to just address the comments, even though it was on the amendment, for just one brief moment, because it does apply to the bill. We don't want to make this so onerous that it can't be used in a responsible way. And so what this does, it's going to be required during your registration to determine where you're going to vote. And if you are not a resident of that state where you may, or county or city where you may be commuting to, you can't vote there, folks. You have to vote where you reside. And so I just don't think that that was an appropriate amendment, and I appreciate your support in resisting it.
Point of order, Chair.
Point of order.
Chairman Brown.
Mr. Chairman, we do not refer to appropriate or inappropriate lines of, there was no nefarious actions on anything like that. We don't do that on the floor.
Noted. Chairman Bear.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Okay, so we have a request for some information from our colleague from the southeast part of the state, where he asked or voiced a concern about succeeding power to the executive. Folks, we do at times, and you'll look in our books of all the bills that have passed in the past, there's a large percentage where we do give rulemaking authority where it becomes onerous. I am opposed, generally speaking, to doing that for the bureaucracy to make these rules, but we do it when it's necessary because we're not micromanaging these things. So I would say, in response to why do we want to secede this, the biggest reason that I can think of right now, I was very much involved with the voter ID bill, which we passed in 2021. I worked with the now second executive in the state to ensure that that bill got across the finish line. And during the debate of that bill, this body, frankly, it became political. And because of that, we have bills this particular session to address the loopholes that are available in our voter ID. And I hope that when that comes before this body, we can address that. We don't want to do that here. But I do have a bill that's coming up next where we can more responsibly, as a body, address it, because we're tying in with the national requirements in that bill. It'll be the following bill from here. And we will list what IDs will be, or what materials will be required for that part of registration, which is citizenship. This is for residency. Things change within the state with technology, and I think we need to be nimble, and I appreciate your support for that.
Representative Chestic.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a couple of questions on the bill. One big question mainly, and that is the bill in several places refers to a bona fide resident. And you're allowed to register if you're a bona fide resident of Wyoming. My question is, who decides who's bona fide? The term bona fide resident is not defined in the term. Who has to make the determination whether somebody's application is bona fide? What standards are going to be applied to determine whether somebody is a bona fide resident? Is this the county clerk who's going to be conducting the registration? Do they have to make this decision? And on what basis do they make that decision? Have the county clerks weighed in on this bill, and are they prepared to make those kinds of decisions? Is there an appeal process if somebody is denied because the clerk thinks they're not a bona fide resident and therefore not allowed to register? Is there a due process for that individual to appeal that decision? Thank you.
Representative Larson Lloyd.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And if I could ask the bringer of the bill, and I've been around, and appreciate the work that we've done on voter ID, the most significant of which was the voter ID bill that was authored by the good former representative from up in the Valley of the Stars that is no longer in the legislature and public service, but done a great job. But I don't think that as I'm looking at this 30-day requirement, you've addressed the issue, but I don't know that you've answered. I'm trying to understand why 30 days, why not 10? If I move to Wyoming, I have this job, I've bought a home, I moved here from the East Coast, I want to be able to vote in my state. Tell me the downside of letting me vote as a U.S. citizen in a state that I've been a resident now for 14 days or any time less than 30 days. What evil thing happens there?
Chairman Knapp.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to weigh in on the 30 days. As Representative Bear noted before, that many times throughout the states, they had a one-year residency that was struck down. If you had no limit, if you didn't have the 30 days in there, you could literally come to Wyoming in one day and vote without this in there. So 30 days is something that's been used in multiple states as a minimum, but it also shows intent. And it's important that you have an intent to stay in Wyoming. And that's why the 30 days as a minimum is very, very important to have in the bill. Thank you.
Representative Connolly.
Thank you. I just have a couple of things. It looks like on line 15, page 3, that's probably already standard in the law where it talks about who's currently adjudicated mentally incompetent person. How do the clerks across the state feel about what they're going to have to do in regard to this bill? Have they signed on to this bill, or does anybody know that? And then how do they know who's been adjudicated mentally that they can't vote?
Representative Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To the bringer of the bill, I just have one question, and maybe you can walk us down this. It's the rulemaking process. How does that work timeframes, and who has oversight over that process? Or if there is anybody there? Thank you.
Chairman Bear.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll take that last question first. That was a good question for the body to understand. And I would say that the best way to educate yourself would be to go back and look at this most recent rulemaking process that was gone through, because it was fascinating. I got involved with it because my residents, my constituents wanted something to happen. The number 2 executive was working on that issue, so he brought this rule change. And it was a month to month, it was a several months process. I think it was started in February of last year, and the veto took place in, several months later. But lots of time for testimony. This kind of addresses the question that came from the representative from the Bighorns, that, how did the clerks feel about this? They weighed in at that point. They talked about what they did support, what kind of difficulties they'd have. And there are a myriad of concerns about the IDs. And again, that goes back to why we chose rulemaking in this particular bill versus just listing the IDs. And again, there's so many changes with technology today. It's a good idea to give that rulemaking ability in this particular case. Who oversees that? Well, I would say since the chief executive of the state was able to veto that rulemaking, I would say he ultimately holds that power as far as overseeing that. But the whole process is handled by whichever executive is going through that rulemaking, or whichever department head if it's an agency. Hopefully that answers your question there. And I think I addressed the good representative from the Bighorns there as well. The good representative from the southeast part of the state brought up the word bona fide, which you see in the bill. That is language which is in statute today. That word means genuine, and that's just a word. You can find it in Black's law commentary. It's defined there. In the last part of this bill, it talks about, there's a section that talks about definitions when principal act is silent. You can look at a list of definitions in that part of law, and that's one of those words that we understand as genuine. The question would be, well, how does that get applied? And I think that was asked earlier, and it gets applied by the clerk using the tools like this bill is providing. This bill helps put some sideboards so that those clerks understand that much better, what is bona fide. But I'll just tell you a story that we got in testimony from one of the clerks. It was really phenomenal, the kind of effort that our clerks go through to understand and ensure that our electors are qualified. There was a person who their home was being demolished, and she was aware of that. And this person was attempting to register to vote, and they had moved to another state, okay? And so she had conversations with that person. And they ultimately, it came down to, well, you've got to sign this attestation. And I thankfully, rightfully chose, after reading what they were attesting to, they chose not to vote in our state. They went back to where they were living currently, and they registered to vote there, and they voted there. So we have a lot of good things going on right now. Again, we don't know what we don't know. So providing this proof allows our constituents to have that level of confidence. Thank you.
Hold on. Question being called? No, Representative Pendergraft. Sorry, I didn't see you back there.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Very quickly, just some thoughts on the 30 days. We hear a lot of people that are frustrated with the out-of-state money coming into elections. And it seems to me that by having a 30-day or a 90-day or even a 120-day, we begin to erode the power of that money in the voters' eyes. People have the time to come in and not just see the ads, not just see the flyers, and I'm talking about local state elections, much more so than national elections. Certainly, those are easily assimilated from wherever. But you need a little bit of time, I think, to be able to get into the community, to understand who the people genuinely are, to meet some people, to ask some questions, maybe go out and speak with those candidates. To me, it seems a help in mitigating and kind of diminishing the power of those out-of-state dollars. Thank you.
Representative Yen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wholeheartedly agree with the last speaker. I think it is important that voters in Wyoming actually live in Wyoming. Again, 30 days is arbitrary. What does 30 days mean? How does that mean you actually live in Wyoming? I think I agree with the good chairman of corporations. We need to make sure that they intend to stay in the state of Wyoming. So I will be bringing an amendment to help clarify that a little bit, just the intention to stay in the state of Wyoming, because 30 days by itself is arbitrary. We want people who live here, play here, work here. Those are our voters.
Representative Campbell Kevin.
Mr. Speaker, I rise in support of this because I'm looking at this that it's a conjunction. It's not just the time. Time would have something to do with a privilege, like a hunting license is a privilege. The right to vote is the right to vote. So it's not so much the time, it is the combination of the time anchored with a residence. It is not one aspect, it is the holistic aspect of the bill that is accomplishing the purpose of the people. Thank you for your time.
Representative Worf.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a question, want some clarification on. Maybe some people may have the same question, but I believe, and hopefully somebody can answer this question, but through the rulemaking process, once those rules and regulations have been drafted, I believe they go back to the Senate for confirmation. And I didn't know if the House sees that. I thought it was just the Senate, and that's kind of what I'm seeing the head shaking the right way. But just so the body knows, when we draft rules and regulations, and I'm one of these guys, that's usually a no vote for me. I feel like I've been elected to represent the people in my district, and anytime you give rulemaking authority away, that's us abrogating our authority. And so I'm always reluctant. I'm almost always a no vote. But those that are reluctant, I do think it's important that you understand that once those rules and regulations are drafted, they are available. And I don't know, when they go before the Senate, I don't know if they can bring them back to the body. I'm assuming that if there's a rule that the Senate doesn't like, they can either strike that down or they can bring the whole process back. So maybe there could be some clarity on that. What we do if there is a rule or regulation that the Senate don't like, do they have the ability to pull that away from the rulemaking body? Thank you.
We want to make sure that we, refer to the body down the hall or some, not refer to their actual name. Thanks. Representative Yen.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Just to speak on what the rulemaking process is. So an agency will propose rules. They'll have a public comment period. That public comment period is to receive comment from the public. They'll take in that comment, maybe revise their proposed rules a little bit more. Those proposed rules, once the agency is okay with it, actually goes to Management Council. So it does go to the legislature. And Management Council gets a recommendation from LSO. So our LSO attorneys take a look at it, determine mostly whether they have statutory authority over those. Management Council will vote on a recommendation themselves. That recommendation ends up going to the chief executive. The chief executive usually sends those rules to their attorney general's office as well, and then the chief executive decides whether those rules are approved or not approved. So it doesn't go to the Senate. We don't have any veto authority, sorry, it doesn't go down the hall. We don't have any veto authority as a legislature. We have a recommendation authority on that rulemaking. We always have the chance to change that by statute in the following year, but not necessarily edit things unless we called a special session for whatever reason to do that.
Chair, sorry, I can't see. Representative Locke?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I'll be brief, but I just want to rise I'm in support of this bill moving forward. This to me just seems like common sense enhancements to election integrity. And quite honestly, the 30 days, it's just an initial step in the direction of us putting some, let's say, common sense wrapper around intent, rather than 1 day, 5 days, person moves in, stays in a hotel or whatever, and does it. This 30 days is at least an initial precursor to showing some intent. And so I'm in support of this bill.
Representative Bear.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Lots of questions, good debate, much appreciated. Just ask for your aye vote. Thank you.
Question being called. All those in favor of Chairman Knapp's motion that when the committee whole rises with the recommendation that House Bill 156 do pass, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? No. House Bill 156 has passed committee of the whole. The next bill for our consideration is House Bill 1. Oh, Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the Committee of the Whole begs leave to rise and sit again until 2 p.m.
You heard the motion. All those in favor? All those opposed? No. That has passed. I guess we'll come back at 2 p.m. Oh, wait. There you go. Committee announcements. Go ahead, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Byron.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your committee number 6 travel will meet in about 15 minutes downstairs in room number 5. I had a little misinformation yesterday, so please note that we will be hearing House Bill 45, House Bill 73, and House Bill 5. About 15 minutes down there in room number 3. Thank you.
Thank you. Chairman Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Your committee number 8, Transportation, Highways, and Military Affairs, will meet in 15 minutes, promptly at 12:10, to consider House Bill 29 and House Bill 33.
Chairman Bear.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Your committee number 2 will meet in 15 minutes at 12:10 in Capitol Room E301 to consider the possibility of markup of state K-12 capital construction. We will also be meeting tomorrow at 8 a.m. for continuing that discussion, as well as re-referrals, and upon noon recess tomorrow for the same purpose and in the same room.
And can we get, Mr. Chairman, can we get those bill numbers, please?
There was one bill re-referred at this point, and that is House Bill 47.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Any other announcements? I guess we'll all come back at 2 o'clock. Committee will stand in recess till 2 o'clock.